One of my friends and colleagues came to join my husband and I last night because she doesn't live here in Boston anymore, and was going to join us today, has been here all day. She said, oh, let me look at the agenda. I haven't seen it printed up. So I handed it to her, and she said, oh, I see you're going to talk about what people want. And I looked up from my dinner and said, I am. But not thinking that I was going to tell anybody about what people want. But I do want to talk with you about what Civic Ventures has learned and what we're watching and seeing and encouraging around the country of organizations that are serving individuals and helping this whole connection happen between individuals and these get matched up with employers in these sectors that have huge nonprofit and social sector needs that puts this talent to work. So I'm going to skip over the what people want because I think you've been talking about it all day long, and try to proceed through some of these pictures, and I can just go right into this, I see. Let's see, what do I point at? There we go. Okay. These fundamental trends won't come as too much of a surprise to any of you because we've been talking about them all day as well. We know leading edge boomers are going to be working longer, and I think the thing that Civic Ventures wants to point out the most to others outside this room is that even in this economy, people are focused on wanting to give back, and especially at this stage in their lives. So the news is good, I think, for this shortage that is predicted, is that many of us at this stage of our lives truly do want to put our shoulders to the wheel on helping solve some of these big social problems that we're facing. The pathways to these opportunities are just now emerging, and I'm going to give you a few examples of those. They're not in place yet, and all over the country. We hope that they're ubiquitous soon and as soon as possible, but I'll tell you about some that are models in place that we're finding and championing and talking about. And I think we don't have time. It could be a whole nother day on the readiness of the nonprofit employers to take advantage of this talent and to make the changes that are going to need to be made to accommodate our interests in these different forms of work and in new roles that actually make our lives manageable the way we want to work at this stage of our lives, but continues to still tap our talent and our resources. So this is what we know from the Bluestone research, and Barry, of course, has just given you the top line on that, but what I want to re-emphasize among what he said is that these jobs are going to be in these nonprofit and public sector fields, that many of them, millions of them, are going to be in these fields that Civic Ventures is hoping to raise up the notion of, mainly because the talent and resources that you have to put to helping these organizations achieve their missions are going to make the difference, we think, of helping us address them and at the same time help putting people to work in fields where they really feel they have contributions to make. Now this is a framework and a paradigm that we've developed to kind of make this point that on the one hand, the supply and demand picture of this framework is that, as you've just heard, and you've probably all known because the media is all over it, is there are millions of baby boomers reaching this stage of their lives, 78 or 80, depending on who's quoting the numbers, with tremendous amount of experience and the big social needs that we have that aren't hard to enumerate in this country, with social sector employers needing help solving those problems. What's missing is the middle connector piece. And we talk about those as encore pathways. And when you have as many people sitting in this room saying they want to do this kind of work, and we have employers saying they're interested in tapping talent, or we have huge social problems that need that talent, we've come to focus a lot of our attention at Civic Ventures on the fact that these groups can't find each other. If we're talking to a group of employers, nonprofit or public sector employers, they can get all jazzed up about this idea, just like you do, but they say, well, you know, where do we find these people? And I just want to say, well, you know, go out to LaSalle College on a Saturday afternoon and see what you can find. But there's going to have to be more institutional structures put in place to make this happen. And we've been focusing at Civic Ventures on 4 of them that you'll see here. Whoops, went too fast. Job matching organizations that can help Encore individuals find these roles. Education and training, which you've heard some people need, not everyone, but some people will need to retool. And this notion of fellowships that we refer to the last 2, fellowship and service opportunities, as experiential pathways to Encore careers. There have been many examples people have given in the panels and the small groups that I've heard today who talked about finding volunteer opportunities that led to employment. So we've heard lots of great examples of that today. But the fellowships is a new pilot, a new model that Civic Ventures is working on. If you've got college kids or high school kids that are doing internships in opportunities to move in, it's similar, but again, it's focused on the experience and the pathways. So we've got to build out this missing link, and that's why you can't walk out of here today and, you know, just have it all be right there for you. But socially, we need to build these new frameworks and new structures in all of our communities to make this connection easier for these 2 sets who need it. Now, I'm just going to give you run through as quickly as I can, some examples of organizations around the country that we know of that are doing this. This organization, Reserve, is based in New York City, and it's actually an organization that is both recruiting and training and finding placements for individuals who range, they're placing them in positions in both city agencies and nonprofit organizations that's tapping the talent of senior managers and engineers, writers, receptionists, art teachers, and this woman is one of those art teachers. And this Reserve organization, even in its role, serves as a paymaster. So people in this organization, people who come through Reserve are paid by Reserve because the contract is made with the hiring organization. So it's a new model. It cuts through a lot of red tape for hiring city agencies, and it's placed over 200 people in jobs in the last 3 years that are working and being connected through this job matching service. There's another one in California called Aspiranet that is doing something similar in schools. Now, the next is just a quick look at we have this college initiative that I'm working on. Civic Ventures has been generously funded by a couple of foundations to give grants, innovation grants, to community colleges around the country to build and implement Encore pathways so that people who need to be retrained, either to be relicensed as teachers or to be trained to be college adjunct faculty, and a couple of them are teaching, are helping nurses who are clinical floor nurses learn also to become part of the nursing education faculty that are so desperately needed in our colleges. And a total of 40 of these grants have been given to community colleges across the country. One of the recipients this year is just getting started, so they weren't ready to come and offer these opportunities to you today, is at Middlesex Community College. And they'll be doing an adjunct faculty training program for people who want to move into that field. So we think that community colleges, and I'm always an advocate for saying that if you haven't given community colleges a serious look, you're missing an opportunity, especially here in Massachusetts where we have so many higher education institutions. But community colleges are everywhere in the country, and they are accessible, they're lower cost, they seem to be connected well to employers in the community, and they've been very responsive to our efforts to inspire them to begin some innovative programs for Encore seekers like you. And then the Encore Fellows Project is in its pilot stage, and the first pilot is about 2 years old in Silicon Valley. It was funded by the Packard Foundation, and in this project, people who have been, it's got corporate involvement as well. People who are skilled corporate employers have been given the opportunity to apply for and receive an Encore Fellowship, which places them in a nonprofit organization in the Bay Area for a period of 6 to 12 months for a stipend of $25,000 to do work that they're already experienced in and trained in marketing and finance, human resources, and team management. And the evaluation that was completed after the first year, asking the nonprofits, you know, their opinion of how much these individuals brought to their organizations, were so enthusiastic about it and averaging out their estimates that they were getting $100,000 worth of value for the $25,000 in the project. So we're working hard to get this idea spread into other communities, and if you keep an eye on things, Carol and I are working hard to see if we can get one of those established here in the Boston area as well. And then service, we talked a lot about service in the panel discussions that have been held. People have given their personal stories about that, but you should know that the Ted Kennedy, it was named after Ted Kennedy, the Kennedy Service America Act that was passed in 2009, has established for AmeriCorps, that's funded through the Corporation for Community and National Service, will now require that 10% of all the AmeriCorps placements or members that are appointed would be people over 55 years of age. So if service is a pathway to an Encore career, which we believe it is, these opportunities, which will be coming through state offices, and the one here is called the Massachusetts Service Alliance, both fellowships and regular AmeriCorps placements are going to be increasing. They're not quite underway yet, but very soon they will be. So that's another place that you should be looking into for those kinds of opportunities. And then just quickly, there are 3 organizations in the country that are similar to Discovering What's Next that are doing these kinds of community-wide coalitions. One's in Arizona called Experience Matters. There's one in Portland, Oregon called Life by Design that is offering people opportunities for life planning, service connections, work, and things similar to what Discovering What's Next is doing. But what I really want to do in talking about these community groups is give a tremendous amount of credit to Discovering What's Next for this particular kind of workshop that is specifically focused on Encore careers. And this is the very first all-day workshop of its kind for these kinds of community organizations that's occurred in the country across these various new organizations that are being started. So they're not, as I said, they're not there yet, and they're only in scattered places. So you're lucky to be here, and you're lucky to have Discovering What's Next as a tremendous resource for you here in this area. So the story is an 8-year story in terms of numbers and emerging roles, and you are pioneers, and you are going to have to be part of the solution, as Alan Goodman told us this morning. We are probably going to have to advocate pretty strongly for ourselves, but it really is a rosy story of sorts, because it is emerging. I think it's inevitable. I don't think it can, you know, the pressure of all of this coming into this age range is going to be, it's going to be a pressure that can't be resisted. And so you have an opportunity to shape it, and Civic Ventures and the Encore Careers campaign is here to help that happen. But then the main message, I think, is to take advantage of every opportunity you can with Discovering What's Next, because it is one of the biggest and best models of this sort of effort going on in the country. So congratulations to Carol Greenfield and to Doug and everyone here for this wonderful resource.